Expectation of Yeshua's return. The Jerusalem assembly walked each day with their eyes fixed toward the horizon, for Yeshua had risen from the grave and ascended into the heavens. The messengers of Yahweh had spoken plainly that he would return in the same way. This promise settled over the assembly like morning dew, refreshing their hope, steadying their hearts, guiding their steps. They lived as people waiting for a king who had gone to prepare a place for them, and who at the appointed time would stand again upon the Mount of Olives with power and great glory. Every word Yeshua spoke before his departure shaped their expectation. He told them to watch. He told them to be ready. He told them that no one knew the day or the hour. He warned them of trials and deceptions, of wars and trembling earth, of false voices and cold hearts. But he also promised deliverance, justice, resurrection, and the gathering of his chosen from the four winds. Those who walked the covenant path did not treat his words lightly. They carried them like oil in their lamps, guarding them so the flame would not die when the night grew long. The apostles strengthened this hope each time they taught. Peter spoke of the day when Yeshua would be revealed, urging the assembly to remain steadfast. James reminded them that the judge stood at the door. Paul told the believers that Yeshua would descend with a shout, with the voice of the archangel and the trumpet of Yahweh, and that the dead in Messiah would rise first. John declared that when he appears, the faithful would see him as he is and be made like him. These were not distant promises. They were stones under their feet. Expectation of Yeshua's return shaped the assembly's courage. When persecution rose and rulers threatened them, they remembered that the one who now reigns in the heavens would soon judge all injustice. They endured beatings and imprisonment because they believed that the sufferings of the present time were not worthy to be compared with the glory that would be revealed. When Stephen saw the heavens open and Yeshua standing at the right hand of Yahweh, the assembly knew that death was not defeat. It was a doorway into life. This hope purified them. They did not cling to sin, for they awaited the Holy One. They did not hide grudges, for they expected the Judge. They did not live for riches, for their treasure was laid up in the heavens. They lived soberly, walking the path with clean hands, knowing that the Master could return at any moment. Every choice became weighty. Every word mattered. Every act of mercy, every prayer, every open door, every broken loaf of bread became a preparation for the day of his appearing. The assembly comforted one another with this hope. When a brother or sister died, they mourned, but not as those without hope. They spoke of the resurrection. They reminded one another that the dead in Yeshua sleep until the trumpet sounds. They stood at graves with tears and courage, declaring that Yeshua would call his own from the dust, just as he himself rose from the tomb. Their hope was not weak or wavering. It was anchored in the empty tomb and the testimony of many witnesses. Their daily life carried the weight of this expectation. At the morning prayers, they remembered his promises. At the evening table, they spoke of the feast to come in his kingdom. When they prayed for boldness, they prayed as those who believed the king was returning. When they endured suffering, they walked as those who awaited justice. When they lifted their voices in song, they sang with longing for the day Yeshua would reign from Zion. They watched for signs, not with fear but with understanding. Wars did not alarm them, for Yeshua had spoken of such things. Earthquakes and famines reminded them of his words. False teachers stirred their vigilance. The assembly's growth across nations filled them with wonder, for Yeshua had told them that the good news would go forth before the end. They lived within the story he told. The Ruach HaKodesh strengthened their expectation. He stirred hope when hearts grew tired. He whispered promises remembered from Scripture. He lifted their eyes when sorrow bowed them low. He filled them with joy unspeakable even in trials, reminding them that the one who comes is faithful. Their hope was not merely a thought. It was the wind in their lungs, the fire in their bones. And so they waited, not with folded hands, but with active faith. They taught, they served, they healed, they shared, they prayed, they endured. They lived as loyal servants preparing their house for the return of their master. Each day was one day closer. Each night was one night nearer. Their final prayer at every gathering echoed the last words of the revelation. Come, Master Yeshua. This is how the Jerusalem assembly walked the covenant path, with steady feet, burning lamps, watchful eyes, and hearts anchored in the promise that their king would return and set his feet once more on the mountain he loved. They waited with joy, endured with courage, and lived each day as if the dawn of his appearing might break upon them at any moment.